the CAIRO pyramids of the Giza Plateau, there's a lot more that needs to be discovered. The Giza Plateau and Old CAIRO are crisscrossed with subterranean passageways and shafts, natural caverns, lakes, and chambers that contain surprising artifacts, but Egyptian authorities are not ready to reveal these to the public. To comprehend the fully secret information in the Bible, it's important to understand the extent of the subterranean tunnel system and associated chamber facilities existing below the surface of the pyramid plateau of Giza, because it was there that major elements of mystery school teachings developed. What happened under the sands thousands of years ago is not reflected in today's history books, and discoveries made in the last 8 decades or so verify that point. The Fayum Oasis district, just a few kilometers outside the boundary of the Memphis Nome, presents a site of unusual interest. It was in that lush, fertile valley that pharaohs calling themselves the masters of the royal hunt fished and hunted with a boomerang. Lake Moris once bordered the Fayum Oasis, and on its shores was the famous labyrinth, described by ancient Greek Herodotus as an endless wonder to me. The labyrinth contained 1,500 rooms and an equal number of underground chambers that the Greek historian Herodotus was not permitted to inspect, according to labyrinth priests. Quote, the passages were baffling and intricate, designed to provide safety for the numerous scrolls, they said, were hidden in subterranean apartments. That massive complex particularly impressed Herodotus, and he spoke in awe of the structure. This is what he said, quote, there I saw 12 palaces, regularly disposed, which had communication with each other, interspersed with terraces and arranged around 12 halls. And this is, we have to keep in mind that this was something totally unexpected and extraordinary. He says, it's hard to believe that they are a work of man. The walls are covered with carved figures, and each court is exquisitely built of white marble and surrounded by colonnades. Near the corner where the labyrinth ends, there is a pyramid, 240 feet in height, with great carved figures of animals on it and underground passages by which it can be entered. I was told very credibly that underground chambers and passages connected this pyramid with the pyramids at Memphis. Underground passages connecting pyramids. The pyramids at Memphis were the pyramids at Giza, and Giza was originally called Memphis. And you can see the reference Giza, formerly Memphis, on Nordan's map from Travels in Egypt and Nubia in 1757, page 152 of a previous chapter. Many ancient writers supported Herodotus' record of underground passages connecting major pyramids, and their evidence cast doubt on the reliability of traditionally presented Egyptian history. Grantor, 300 BC, stated that there were certain underground pillars in Egypt that contained a written stone record of prehistory, and they lined access ways connecting the pyramids. In his celebrated study, titled On the Mysteries, and quote, particularly those of the Egyptians, Chaldeans, and the Assyrians, Lamblicus, a 4th century Syrian, representative of the Alexandrian school of mystical and philosophical studies, recorded this information about an entranceway through the body of the Sphinx into the Great Pyramid. Yes, an entranceway from the Sphinx into the Great Pyramid of Khufu. The entrance obstructed in our day by sands and rubbish, and we have to remember this was back in 300 BC. The entrance obstructed in our day by sands and rubbish may still be traced between the forelegs of the crouched colossus, the Sphinx. It was formerly closed by a bronze gate, whose secret spring could be operated only by the Magi. It was guarded by public respect, and a sort of religious fear maintained its inviolability better than armed protection would have done. In the belly of the Sphinx were cut-out galleries leading to the subterranean part of the Great Pyramid, These galleries were so artfully crisscrossing along their course to the pyramid that, in setting forth into the passage without a guide throughout this network, one ceasingly and inevitably returned to the starting point. It was recorded in ancient Sumerian cylinder seals that the secret abode of the Anunnaki was an underground place, quote unquote, an underground place entered through a tunnel, its entrance hidden by sand and by what they call Huwana, H-U-W-A-N-A, Huwana, its teeth as the teeth of the dragon, his face as the face of a lion, end quote. That remarkable old text, unfortunately fragmented, added that he, Huwana, was unable to move forward, nor is he able to move back. But they crept up on him from behind, and the way to the secret abode of the Anunnaki was no longer blocked. The Sumerian record provided a probable description of the lion-headed Sphinx at Giza, and if that great creature was built to guard or obliterate ancient stairways and lower passages leading to subterranean areas below and around it, then its symbolism was most appropriate. Local 19th century Arab lore maintained that existing under the Sphinx are secret chambers holding treasures or magical objects. That belief was bolstered by the writings of the 1st century Roman historian Pliny, who wrote that deep below the Sphinx is concealed, quote, the tomb of the ruler named Harmachis, Harmakhis, Harmachis, that contained great treasure, end quote. And strangely enough, the Sphinx itself was once called the Great Sphinx Harmachis, who mounted guard since the time of the followers of Horus, end quote. The 4th century Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus made additional disclosures about the existence of subterranean vaults that appeared to lead to the interior of the Great Pyramid. Inscriptions which the ancients asserted were engraved on the walls of certain underground galleries and passages were constructed deep in the dark interior to preserve ancient wisdom from being lost in the flood. So here they're claiming that these were pre-flood structures, pre-flood civilizations had constructed all this. A manuscript compiled by the Arab writer named Al-Telemansi Al-Telemansi is preserved in the British Museum, and it records the existence of a long, square, underground passage between the Great Pyramid and the River Nile, with a strange thing, quote-unquote, blocking the Nile entrance. He related the following episode. In the days of Ahmed ben Tulun, a party entered the Great Pyramid through the tunnel and found in a side chamber a goblet of glass of rare color and texture. As they were leaving, they missed one of the party, and upon returning to seek him, he came out to them naked and laughing and said, quote, "Do not follow or seek for me," end quote, and then rushed back into the pyramid. His friends perceived that he was enchanted. Upon learning about strange happenings under the pyramid, Ahmed ben Tulun expressed a desire to see the goblet of glass. During the examination, it was filled with water and weighed, then emptied and reweighed. The historian wrote that it was, quote, found to be of the same weight when empty as when full of water, end quote. If the chronicle is accurate, the lack of additional weight provided indirect evidence of the existence of an extraordinary science at Giza. In other words, extraordinary physical properties. According to Masudi, in the 10th century, mechanical statues with amazing capabilities guarded subterranean galleries under the Great Pyramid. Written 1,000 years ago, his description is comparable to the computerized robots shown today in space movies. Masudi said that the automatons, these robots, automatons, were programmed for intolerance, for they destroyed all, quote, except those who by their conduct were worthy of admission, end quote. Masudi contended that, quote, Written records of wisdom and acquirements in the different arts and sciences were hidden deep, that they might remain as records for the benefit of those who could afterwards comprehend them." End quote. That is phenomenal information, and it is possible that, since the times of Masudi, worthy persons have seen the mysterious underground chambers. This is what Masudi confessed. Quote, "I have seen things that one does not describe for fear of making people doubt one's intelligence, but still I have seen them." End quote. In the same century, another writer, Muterdi, gave an account of a bizarre incident at a narrow passage under Giza, where a group of people were horrified to see one of their party crushed to death by a stone door that by itself suddenly slid out from the face of the passageway and closed the corridor in front of them. Old records confirmed. Herodotus said Egyptian priests recited to him their long-held tradition of, quote, "the information of underground apartments," end quote, by the original developers of Memphis. The most ancient inscriptions therefore suggested that there existed some sort of extensive chamber system below the surface of the areas surrounding the Sphinx and the pyramids. These old records were confirmed when the presence of a large cavity was discovered in a seismic survey conducted at the site in 1993. That detection was publicly acknowledged in a documentary called "The Mystery of the Sphinx," screened to an audience of 30 million people on NBC TV last year. The existence of chambers under the Sphinx is well known. Egyptian authorities confirmed another discovery in 1994. Its unearthing was announced in a newspaper report that was carried under the headline, "Mystery Tunnel in Sphinx." Workers repairing the ailing Sphinx have discovered an ancient passage leading deep into the body of the mysterious monument. The Giza Antiquities chief, Mr. Zahi Hawass, said there was no dispute the tunnel was very old. However, what is puzzling is who built this passage and why? Where does it lead? Mr. Zahi Hawass said he had no plans to remove the stones blocking the entrance. The secret tunnel burrows into the north side of the Sphinx, about halfway between the Sphinx's outstretched paws and its tail. The popular supposition that the Sphinx is the true portal of the Great Pyramid has survived with surprising tenacity. That belief was substantiated by 100-year-old plans prepared by Masonic and Rosicrucian initiates, showing the Sphinx was the ornament surmounting a hall that communicated with all pyramids by radiating underground passages. Those plans were compiled from information originally discovered by the supposed founder of the Order of the Rosicrucians, Christian Rosenkreutz, who allegedly penetrated a, quote, "secret chamber beneath the ground," unquote, and there found a library of books full of secret knowledge. The schematic drawings were produced from information possessed by mystery school archivists before sand clearing commenced in 1925 and revealed hidden doors to long-forgotten reception halls, small temples, and other enclosures. Those plans are included in, quote, "the master plan," and, quote, section at the end of the book. The knowledge of the mystery schools was strengthened by a series of remarkable discoveries in 1935 that provided proof of additional passageways and chambers interlacing the area below the pyramid. The Giza complex showed major elements of being a proposed built, uniting structure with the Sphinx, the Great Pyramid, and the Templar of the solar men, solar as in the sun, solar men directly relating to each other above and below the ground. Chambers detected by ground-penetrating radar. Chambers and passageways detected by sophisticated seismography and ground-penetrating radar, GPR, equipment in the last few years established the accuracy of the plans. Egypt is also successfully using sophisticated satellites to identify sites buried beneath the surface at Giza and other locations. The novel tracking system was launched at the beginning of 1998, and the location of 27 unexcavated sites in 5 areas was precisely determined. 9 of those sites are on Luxor's East Bank, and the others are in Giza: Abu Rawash, Saqqara, and Dashur. The printouts of the Giza area show an almost incomprehensible mass of net-like tunnels and chambers crisscrossing the whole area, intersecting and entwining each other like latticework extending out across the entire plateau. With the space surveillance project, Egyptologists are able to determine the location of a major site, its probable entrance, and the size of chambers before starting excavations. Particular attention is being focused on 3 secret locations. 1. An area in the desert a few hundred meters west and southwest of the original location of the Black Pyramid, around which is currently being built a massive system of concrete walls 7 meters high, covering 8 square kilometers. 2. The ancient highway that linked the Luxor temple with Karnak. And 3. The Way of Horus across northern Sinai. Headline News. Among the mystics or members of Egyptian mystery schools, tradition explained that the Great Pyramid was great in many ways, despite the fact that it was not entered until the year 820. The secret schools of pre-Christian Egypt insisting that the interior layout was well known to them. They constantly claimed that it was not a tomb nor a burial chamber of any kind, except that it did have one chamber for symbolic burial as part of an initiation ritual. According to mystical tradition, the interior was entered gradually and in various stages via underground passages. Different chambers were said to have existed at the end of each phase of progress, with the highest and ultimate initiatory stage representing by the now called King's Chamber. Little by little, the traditions of the mystery schools were verified by archaeological discoveries, for it was ascertained in 1935 that there was a subterranean connection between the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid, and that a tunnel connected the Sphinx to the ancient temple located on its southern side, today called the Temple of the Sphinx. As Emile Barres's massive 11-year sand and seashell clearing project neared completion in 1935, remarkable stories started to emerge about discoveries made during this clearing project. A magazine article written and published in 1935 by Hamilton M. Wright dealt with an extraordinary discovery under the sands of Giza that is today denied. The article was accompanied by original photographs proved by Dr. Selim Hassan, the leader of the scientific investigation team from the University of Cairo, who made the discovery, and it said, quote, "We have discovered a subway used by the ancient Egyptians 5,000 years ago, a subway. It passes beneath the causeway leading between the second pyramid and the Sphinx. It provides a means of passing under the causeway from the Cheops pyramid to the pyramid of Khephren, that is Khephren. From this subway, we have unearthed a series of shafts leading down more than 125 feet with roomy courts and side chambers." End quote. Around the same time, the international news media released further details of the find. The underground connector complex was originally built between the Great Pyramid and the Temple of the Solar Men, for the Pyramid of Khephren was a later superficial structure. The subway and its apartments were excavated out of solid, living bedrock, a truly extraordinary feat, considering it was built thousands of years ago. There is more to the story of underground chambers at Giza, for media reports describing the unearthing of a subterranean passageway between the Temple of the Solar Men and the plateau and the Temple of the Sphinx in the valley. That passageway had been unearthed a few years before and the release and publication of that particular newspaper article. The discoveries led Dr. Selim Hassan and others to believe and publicly state that while the age of the Sphinx was always enigmatic in the past, it may have been part of the great architectural plan that was deliberately arranged and carried out in association with the erection of the Great Pyramid. Archaeologists made another major discovery at that time. Around halfway between the Sphinx and Khepren's pyramid were discovered 4 enormous vertical shafts, each around 8 feet square, leading straight down through solid limestone. It's called the Campbell's Tomb on the Masonic and Rosicrucian plans, and that shaft complex, said Dr. Salim Hassan, ended in a spacious room, in the center of which was another shaft that descended to a roomy court flanked with 7 side chambers. Some of the chambers contain huge sealed sarcophagi of basalt and granite 18 feet high. The discovery went further and found that in one of the 7 rooms there was yet a 3rd vertical shaft dropping deep down to a much lower chamber. At the end of its discovery, it was flooded with water that partly covered a solitary white sarcophagus. This chamber was named the Tomb of Osiris and was shown being opened for the first time on a fabricated television documentary in March 1999, while originally exploring in the area in 1935. Dr. Salim Hassan said, "We're hoping to find some monuments of importance after clearing out this water. The total depth of these series of shafts is more than 40 meters or 125 feet down. In the course of clearing the southern part of the subway, there was found a very fine head of a statue which is very expressive in the early details of the face." And according to a separate newspaper report of that time, the statue was an excellent sculpted bust of Queen Nefertiti, described as a beautiful example of that rare type of art inaugurated in the Amenhotep regime. The whereabouts of that statue today are unknown. Part 2 follows.